Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about one of the most emotional issues in American politics, immigration reform. It impacts millions of people. Here with me to discuss it is Grace Flores-Hughes. She's an expert on immigration policy and has served in 3 U.S. administrations. Also joining us is Mark Krikorian. He is the Executive Director at the Center for Immigration Studies. Welcome to both of you to the show. Grace, let me start with you. I mean, we know that the immigration policy in this country needs to be reformed. We hear it from both political parties all the time. Why is the system so broken right now?
Well, there are various reasons. It would be good if the Republicans and the Democrats could come together, but it seems like Republicans have one agenda, which is not new to a lot of folks, and the Democrats have another. The Republicans concentrate a lot on border security, where the Democrats seem to concentrate a lot on the human crisis that's going on and how to unify, how to bring in the millions that are here without documents into a path to either citizenship or at least legal residency. Those two different agendas don't seem to come together at any point. And after having witnessed the human crisis that occurred this summer at the southwest border, I would hope that they would now realize they have to come together, not just for that, which is enormous, but for everything else that surrounds immigration reform, from whether they go to school, where they're sheltered, what to do with the millions, the education part of it, in terms of those who were brought here by their parents. There are lots of issues, and that one human crisis this summer, I hope, will now finally bring them together. And
there is the political logjam. Mark, as I mentioned to our previous guest, the young man who's here as an undocumented immigrant, President Obama campaigned on a platform of saying that he would bring immigration reform once he got into the White House. I want you to take a listen to what he told the NBC program Meet the Press just a short while ago. Let's watch this.
The country is going to be better off if we have an immigration system that works, that has strong border security, that has streamlined our legal immigration system so the best and the brightest who want to stay here and invest here and create jobs here can do so, that families can be unified, and that a system where the millions of people who are here in many cases for a decade or more, who have American kids, who are neighbors, oftentimes are our friends, that they have a path to get legal by paying taxes and getting above board, paying a fine, learning English if they have to.
That's not new. We've heard that before. The president talks the talk, but there's been very little action.
There's 2 reasons for that. The lesser reason is that immigration really isn't that important to the president. I mean, it's just not. I don't mean that he's dishonest in his views. It's just not a.
Immigrants don't vote.
He doesn't care that much, and it's not. I mean, just emotionally, he doesn't care. Whereas John McCain, for instance, who ran against him some 6 years ago, was much more emotionally invested in it and would have put more effort into it. But the bigger reason, the reason there's such a political logjam, is that we have done this comprehensive immigration reform deal before. We did it 25 years ago in 1986, and it was the same deal where illegal immigrants who have been here for a while would get amnestied. They would be able to stay legally in exchange for promises to enforce the law in the future so we wouldn't be in this situation again. The problem is that deal was a trick. It was a lie. The illegal immigrants got their status. About 3 million illegal immigrants were amnestied. But the enforcement just petered out once that happened because there was no reason to follow through in the deal once the other side got what it wanted. Right. That is the core problem, is a basic lack of trust, because there's no doubt that it will end up the same way. If illegal immigrants got legal status up front, the promises of enforcement would be abandoned in the future.
And Grace, we're hearing that again right now. You know, many people are saying, look, America is a nation of laws. People who want to come here and live here have to go through a certain process, an immigration process, which enables them to live here legally. Now we have millions of people who are here, who came here illegally, who are undocumented immigrants. Why should they be rewarded by getting a pathway to citizenship?
Although I see that, I understand it very clearly. However, someone had their back turned when they came in. and that's our Immigration Enforcement Agency. So we are going to blame people that are coming here desperately. I mean, who really wants to leave their country where they were born and raised, and unless you really have a real problem? There are a lot of problems why they come here, for a better life. But at the same time, so put that aside, at the same time, who's enforcing the border? They somehow came through. Now maybe we don't have a wider border security, a stronger border security. The point is they got through, and they're here now. Now what do we do?
There's a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, there are 5 billion people with a B in the world who live in countries with a lower per capita income than Mexico. So the idea that Mexico is uniquely badly off and therefore people from there should have a right to enter the country is just false. The other issue, and this is an important question, they did get in. And so the implication is anybody who makes it through our immigration system should somehow be allowed to stay, as though it were some kind of test, a kind of race. If you can get past the border, you can stay. But why were they able to get through? Any system, no immigration enforcement system is going to be perfect. There's always going to be some illegal immigrants who will get through. The reason it's been able to grow to such a scale is that the very organizations now calling for amnesty, the Chamber of Commerce, the ethnic organizations, the left-wing organizations, are the ones who are responsible for exerting the political pressure to stop enforcing the law in the first place. There's an image is that somebody who kills his parents and then tells the judge, please have mercy on me because I'm an orphan. He created the problem. The groups calling for comprehensive immigration reform created the very problem they now pretend to have the solution for.
I have to respond that Mexico has always been the whipping boy for this issue. Yeah. This summer, the majority of the people coming here were not from Mexico. They were from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And every time that you hear an immigration issue, it focuses on Mexico. As a Mexican-American, obviously, I take umbrage to it because it's not every Mexican. And yes, there have been a lot of problems in Mexico. Just because there are problems, whether it's poverty or drug or gang violence, doesn't mean, okay, come on over. It's a better life. And they see their relatives come in here, enjoy a better life. They love America. Okay, so is that the reason to allow them to all come in here? Well, certainly not. But the border still has to do their job. They have to do their security job. I saw a fence built in South Texas, and they spent millions and millions on building a fence that was it's not even fully finished, and it's not ever going to be. People can climb over fences, they'll climb when they're determined to go and get a better life. So I think we need to talk border security in a sensible way, and I'm not sure anybody has yet to have that answer.
The point is, there are billions of people who would like to have a better life in the United States. We have to deal with this as grown-ups. There is no limit to the number of people who would want to come here if they could. And we have to say, this is the limit, and we're enforcing this limit. If we have a limit, we have to enforce it and not just pretend to enforce it.
Okay, Mark, I'm wondering if there is an element of hypocrisy here when it comes to immigration reform, because, we hear some advocates for reform that many of the people who come here illegally are doing jobs that Americans won't do. I mean, we have Michelle Middlestad of the Migration Policy Institute who said undocumented immigrants take jobs that Americans don't want.
It's complete nonsense.
And even the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, a Democrat, said, if it weren't for undocumented immigrants, then the price of food in this country would multiply.
Absolute nonsense. Actual economists have looked at that issue. And if we gave every farm worker in the United States a 40% raise overnight, which is what the United Farm Workers had been advocating for a long time, it would cost the average American family the price of going to the movies one time over an entire year. The fact is, labor is a tiny part of the cost of produce in the grocery stores, or frankly, of a lot of other things. There is no such thing as jobs that Americans won't do. We looked at the Census Bureau's data on this. They divide up all the jobs in the country. They put them in categories. Only a few categories have immigrants, not illegal immigrants, but any kind of immigrants, be more than half. Only tiny categories, and even then, it's just a little bit more than half. Most of the people who do that are native born. For instance, janitors. People think people who clean offices and clean buildings. People think of that as a job Americans won't do. 70% of the people who do those jobs are native-born Americans, not immigrants. You can't say that a job that 70% of the people who do it are native-born Americans is a job Americans won't do. This is just an excuse by corporate lobbyists.
Do you believe that to be the case as well?
To some extent, what company, remember, it's against the law to hire immigrants without documents.
Right.
So what company is going to be hiring them to that degree? Yes, they hire them. Do we know where they are? No, we don't. Maybe they have other kinds of papers. We don't know. There's a lot of problems with a lot of this data, whether they are taking jobs away or they're not taking jobs. The point is that they're adding to this economy a lot.
Right.
They do jobs many times. I mean, and I wish that they weren't all in domestic. I wish they were in teaching jobs and everything else. But that is where they are. And why are they in those jobs? Why are they cleaning houses more? Why are they being our gardeners more than anyone else?
Okay, we just have a little time left, and I want to ask both of you the same question. There are many options on the table right now. What is the best practical option, Mark, you first, that we can see being enacted, being implemented? The president said he's not going to do anything until after the midterm elections. That is obviously a political motive for that, but what do we see happening there?
Well, what the president has said he's going to do is unilaterally, and I would submit lawlessly, illegally, legalize millions of illegal immigrants, maybe as many as 5 or 6 million people, give them work permits, give them social security numbers, give them driver's license on his own without Congress's permission. That's what he is threatening to do before the end of the year. He was going to do it before. He pushed it till after the election because it's so unpopular that if he had done that, the Democrats would have lost control of the Senate. So he wants to hold off until it's too late for the public to have a say. It's really not a way things should be working in a democracy. In the longer term, Congress is not going to pass anything as long as Obama is president. He has shown he's simply untrustworthy. He won't enforce rules he doesn't want to enforce. It's really going to wait until the next president, starting in 2017, before Congress, I think, would be willing to re-engage the issue in a serious way.
Grace?
I agree to Mark to some degree. I really wish, as so many Americans, that the president worked with the Congress, Democrats and Republicans, on getting one piece of legislation together that everyone agrees to. Running off and doing your own thing is going to present more problems.
He does have some executive authority there, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah. And that executive order can be signed, and of course, that can be reversed when the next president comes in, if they so choose. It's so much better for the country and the attitude of Americans towards immigrants if they all come in together, supported by the president and both houses of Congress. Let's hope it happens.
Okay, Grace Flores-Hughes, Mark Krikorian, thanks to both of you for joining us.